I'm Adam Stein. I'm Director of Community Reinvestment Act Compliance at Umpqua Bank. I had started out, though, at did you say Umpqua Bank? Yeah, sometimes I forget or mesh the two, but I was with Columbia Bank before the merger, and then as I think many of you have heard throughout the day so far, this Community Benefits Agreement came about due to the merger between Umpqua and Columbia as part of our commitment to the communities now that we're going to be part of. And before I go further, Guillermo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us after lunch. So I know you're probably a little sleepy. Hopefully you won't take a nap on us, but we'll try to keep it as entertaining as we can when you're just looking at a whole bunch of numbers, but we'll see how we do. So my name is Guillermo Sandoval. I am the Financial Inclusion Director at Umpqua Bank. That title may not tell you a whole lot, but really my focus is the Community Benefits Agreement, and some of the things we'll cover here today is really my focus in partnership with the Community Reinvestment Director that you just met. So he and I are partners in this. Been with the bank just a little over 2 years. Prior to that, I was with a bank in Northern California, in Chico, for those of you that might know Northern California. And then prior to that, I was with Banner Bank here in Portland. So my entire career really has been in community reinvestment, community development, and outreach. So good to see you all.
It was when Guillermo was at Banner Bank and I was at then West Coast Bank when I feel like we first started getting to know each other. So part of the neat thing I feel like for me in all this is getting a chance to work with Guillermo so much because it was, and we'll get a bit more into this, but yeah, these kinds of agreements, like these community benefit agreements, of course, they're going to take a lot of work, but they also take a lot of collaboration with really too, at the end of the day, with organizations like yours that likely that you all are part of. One of the neat things about how this all works, in my opinion, is just when you see like an organization like the NCRC come in and provide guidance and connections between these banks that are merging, and then the community groups in their local in the communities in the local communities that will be impacted by the merger. Yeah, there's a really neat opportunity for us to not only talk through things, but like hear what the needs are and what what is important for your organizations, and then try to take as much of that into this community benefits agreement as we can. Because at the end of the day, this agreement, like this thing that you see here, like as Guillermo is noting these numbers and everything, like this all came from talking with community groups like yours. It was also a chance for Guillermo and I to really engage with a whole bunch of people, not only that folks that we directly work with, but then like also other departments throughout our bank to think about what's going to be most important for our communities as we come together. And it's not always going to be come together seamlessly. If you've ever observed or seen it with mergers, there's always just a lot of parts that are coming together, and so inevitably there's just going to be some things that unfortunately either break or don't mesh as well as you initially hoped it would, but then you just keep working at it and then you get it smoothed over. But it was a really neat experience to me to be part of these discussions where we're hearing from the community what is important to them and bringing that back to our people that we work with, people on the mortgage side, people on that are focused on helping get more credit to small businesses, people who are working on affordable housing and providing support for organizations that are that are looking to put together projects that are going to help provide more affordable housing in various communities. So it was, we were having these active discussions while the merger was coming together, and then making decisions that carried over through to the go forward bank. And so things like ensuring that we had from the Columbia side, like things like this nationally certified bank on account. On the Umpqua side, having this wonderful community lending group that is more reflective of the communities that we're part of and is focused on trying to find solutions, especially for lower income or also different underserved communities. So it's so like I say, it was at the end of the day, like when I think about just the things I've been part of in my career, while it was definitely challenging and grueling at times, this putting together this agreement was definitely one of the highlights of my career. And I think about just the opportunity that we have here, again, to continue to work with organizations like many that you all are part of, and we'll look forward to definitely leaving plenty of time for questions and answers, because I don't think you want to hear Guillermo and I talk this entire next hour and 15 minutes. We're also trying to make sure that there are entry points for organizations throughout, for organizations like yours, that you have ways to not only connect with folks like Guillermo and me, but then also some of these other teams that are also at the bank now, and will have responsibilities around some of these different parts of this CBA that we put together. So then with that, I just wanted to see if there was a, oh, that's right. Yeah, let's see if this works. Hey, yeah. All right, so we got the introductions first. We did touch on this a little bit, but that is too, it really was, for me, Guillermo, just such a wonderful thing to be able to work with you on this so closely. I felt like I was talking to Guillermo more than I was talking to sometimes people in my family, like my wife, at times, just because of how much we were working and to get this aligned and effectively communicated to our internal partners and external partners. So, but like I said, it was. It has been for me just a real pleasure that you and I get to work even more directly now.
Yeah, my wife was like, "Who's this Adam that keeps calling and texting you and emailing you and Zoom calls?" It's like, who? And then I have to explain that it was more than just my buddy that we used to hang out with and have lunch all the time. That we actually had to put this whole thing together. But a quick question: before this conference, had you heard of a community benefits agreement prior? Anybody heard of them before? Okay, a few of you. That's great. That's good to know.
Yeah, because that is one of the other things too that we definitely want to make sure that folks come out of here with is not only an understanding of these commitments, but again, just what this is, what it can mean for your organizations, and hopefully ways for us to collaborate even more so going forward. Okay, so a couple other things that I think we wanted to touch on. In pulling together this agreement, like I said, we had listening sessions. There was, it was at the end of, 2021 and beginning of 2022. And then even though that was a good amount of time ago, part of the reason why it took a bit longer for this community benefit agreement of Umpqua's to really get launched was because our merger approval also was very much elongated. So until the merger was actually approved, we weren't able to really start into the CBA. And so that's why you'll see April 1st in some of these next slides as when it actually began. But it's a 5-year commitment. And but that is the other thing though that we want to emphasize, and it's something that I think many of you heard our coworker Nicole who accepted the award at the luncheon, we want to be more than just our CBA. Like it's like, yes, this is a fantastic roadmap for us on what where we should focus our efforts and where we want to support these communities that we're part of, but like we want to be something more than that, and have this be one of the things that we're executing well on and doing good work, but then also have it our hope is that it becomes something where it's this is another one of our like kind of base foundation columns that then supports an organization that where we can be proud of to work at. And so it relies on the Community Reinvestment Act data. So if you're familiar with the Community Reinvestment Act, right, it's this it's a regulation that came out of the civil rights era. It's focused on banks and making sure that they don't do things, most importantly, like redline any longer and exclude areas from getting credit. So the Community Reinvestment Act came around in 1977, and it focuses on what banks are doing from a lending perspective, investing, and services or volunteerism. And so that's a lot of the data, though, that's tracked for the Community Reinvestment Act. That is what the Community Benefit Agreement really relies upon, like a lot of the main components or parts of it. And Guillermo will go over that in a little bit, but like, so that's just a couple, we wanted to just point out a couple things before we get into some more of the details. And then I think that it was a lot I was hoping to cover. But like I said, so we'll, next, Guillermo will take us through a bit more just the overview of the Community Benefits Agreement that we have committed to, and that started April 1st. Then we'll go over a bit more of some of the detailed commitments and components. We'll discuss the other ways to work with Umpqua, and ways to even beyond just Guillermo and I, but like who you can talk to or where you can send different questions or requests. And then we'll wrap up with some next steps, which will really be more questions. All right, so then you want to go next?
All right, as Adam mentioned, the agreement became effective April 1st. So I believe, I'm not sure how it was delivered to you, if it was I think it was via email. You probably received a summary of the CBA from the organizers here at the conference. They also showed a QR code that took you to a link that took you to this document that's like 16 pages. So what you're gonna see today, throughout the day, is that our team members kind of broke it up into different sessions. So they're kind of each kind of doing their own little part. So I won't go in depth into each section because that's being covered in different sessions today. But there's a mortgage, our mortgage team and community development team is having a presentation. We're doing our presentation. We talked about Bank On earlier. So there's quite a few things going on. So we try to put them in bite-sized pieces so you could kind of get a sense of the CBA. But it's out there. You can read all of it, but we're definitely not going to go through it page by page here. So I'll spare you the statistics. But really, the first big number you see is 8.1 billion, right? It's a big number, and when you look at all the different components, you can start getting a sense that just visually you can see that home lending, community development, and investments are a big chunk of that, right? And then followed by small business and charitable giving to round out that number. When we're talking about home lending, as you can see in the description, is residential mortgage and home equity loans to LMI and minority borrowers in LMI majority minority census tracts and in majority minority tracts. So when we worked on this agreement, we made commitments not only by state, so primarily Oregon, Washington, Idaho, California. We also broke those goals, commitments by groups. So we have a group for Black borrowers, Latinx, Asian Americans, low and moderate income borrowers, borrowers in low and moderate income census tracts, and then majority minority census tracts. So we were pretty intentional to say that as we look into our markets and we're setting goals with the NCRC, that we were looking at different groups and different areas, because we didn't want to exclude, a major part of our market by setting goals and then we ignore somebody else. That wouldn't make sense for us to do that. So we were pretty intentional in that. As Adam mentioned, we looked at community reinvestment data. So we went back, a couple years, tried to set up a baseline, and from there, we started negotiating with the NCRC. And one point I want to make, that before this thing even came together, I was happy to see that our management really stepped up to say we want to talk to the community regarding the merger. I've been with 2 other institutions that weren't so open to a process like this. They were more like, we're our own bank, we're our own company, we don't need anybody telling us what to do, right? That was the attitude, which makes things very difficult, especially for professionals like us, that this is what we do for a living. It makes it really tough to be out there in the community. This was quite the opposite. Literally, as soon as we announced, we started talking. We talked with folks at the NCRC and say, hey, we're merging, we want to work with you, can we start engaging? And Adam talked about that process, right? That we listened to the community. So we actually scheduled, and some of you may have, or your organizations may have attended the listening sessions, but we had a listening session for Oregon. That included some from California, and then we also had one for Washington listening session. So we had nonprofits introduce themselves and then talk about, hey, what's the priority? What is the need in the community? So whether we're talking about housing, small business, philanthropy, everything that really made it here was it's really a subset of all the feedback that was provided by those listening sessions. So NCRC helped us kind of put it together in a format, and then from there we started kind of working through each section and getting to a place that we felt comfortable. So mortgages, of course, is a very important part of asset building. I'm sure you heard that message today from other sessions, that's just a critical, when you're talking about home ownership, it's a big deal. When we're talking about, and I'm just going to go in sequence here, $21 million in charitable giving. So far, oh wait, no, yeah, it is. Okay, I'm in the right page. Okay. I'm on a different sequence on a different flyer, so sorry about that. So charitable giving. So we actually have a foundation at our bank. It's called the Umpqua Bank Charitable Foundation. So it is its own independent body. It has a board of directors. It has a grants committee, and it has its own structure. Granted, it's made up of members of our executive team, our president and CEOs there, and other members that are leaders within the company. We have, and this is in flux, okay, because we are revamping our foundation programs, so there'll be more to come on this. So I don't have a lot to share in that space, but just know that we have a community grants program that we have a spring, a summer, and a fall round. Those deadlines have already expired, but we'll start again in 2024, and we'll open those up. We have an online application on our website, and you can go check it out if you just go to umpquabank.com/community. From there, you'll be able to pull up our different programs that are available now. They're looking kind of skinny right now because we haven't released all the new programs that will go into effect into 2024. But that said, 21 million is a big number when you figure that this is over 5 years. So that's just over $4 million a year. So that's going to go to support many of the initiatives here, right? Affordable housing, It's going to support organizations that provide technical assistance to small businesses, primarily minority-owned businesses. We're going to be still supporting organizations that provide services to low-income folks, right? Like food banks and emergency aid. You know, all those will still be part of that focus. So while you see things here in the CBA, this is not all-encompassing to everything that we do as a bank. This is just a portion. It's a big chunk of it, but there's things that we support that go beyond this, right? We're going to have programs that support. We still do Little League, right? We still support those. We still support the fair and all those community events that our branches support. We'll still continue to do that, but there's definitely a focus that is CRA driven, CBA driven on how we, how we come to our communities with funding opportunities. Anything that comes to mind, Anna, on charitable giving? I think we're good. All right, great. Okay, so now I'm gonna go, well, since we're on this slide, I'm gonna stick with community development and investments, since we're right here. So community development under CRA is pretty narrowly defined. So your definition in your community groups is totally different than what community reinvestment says as community development. So Adam, feel free to jump in.
That will hopefully change actually in a couple weeks. We'll see. We've been hearing that you may have heard the Community Reinvestment Act is looking to be the regulators, the prudential regulators are looking to overhaul it and modernize the Community Reinvestment Act so that it more is representative too of just how digital financial organizations are now, and making sure that if an organization has more primarily a digital presence, that they are making sure that they're also meeting the commitments of their virtual communities, so to speak. But that's to Guillermo's point, it can be rather narrow at times. But one of the hopes with the modernization is that it will open things up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. So as it stands today, subject to change, it's mostly focused. There's quite a few activities that can count for community development, but for this agreement, it's really multifamily affordable housing is one of those. So like low-income housing tax credit projects, and Grace from our affordable housing group is here, and her and the rest of the team really focus on serving tax credit projects are serving between, I think it's at least the maximum is 60% AMI. Is that correct? Up to 80? You can go up to 80? Okay. I know in the different scoring models, if you're targeting like even lower income levels, you get more points and you can get other subsidies and things like that. So some projects will target down all the way to 30%. Some will have set-asides for homeless and special needs populations and things like that. So those types of projects are very innovative. They're very complex, and they serve seniors, you name it, and very, very important. So that's a big part of our focus for sure. So Grace has a lot of work to do because she's got to get these numbers, like 3.5 billion over. I'm just kidding, Grace. But there's other things that qualify, right? So like SBA loans that are a certain size can also count here. If we're financing like a food bank in a community, that can count as community development. Or if we have a nonprofit that needs a new office, and we finance it, or we finance a construction loan to build one, that can also count. It just depends on the nonprofit and the work that they do. So community development loans can come from multiple areas. So we'll definitely capitalize on that. The second piece of that is investments. And when we talk about investments, it really is the sense of the word when you think about an investment, like bonds, right? Like tax-exempt bonds and things like that. Those are really our investments.
Mortgage-backed securities.
Yeah, mortgage-backed securities. But there's other things that are a little bit more creative that I like to talk about. I think today you might have heard the word community development financial institutions, CDFIs. That's also an area that we can make investments in. Did you have a thought, Adam?
Oh, no.
Okay, cool. I saw the mic go up, so I thought maybe you had a thought. But so you can do traditional investments like school bonds and revenue bonds and low-income housing tax credit investments. CDFIs is one of them. And I think that's where you can really get creative, because then you can tailor an investment with a CDFI where you can target low and moderate income home ownership, for example, or small businesses. And it really opens up the creativity piece, which I think is really important. Some of those other investments are just kind of boring, and they don't do a lot, because they're around and anybody can get those. But tax credit investments, for sure, are very important. CDFI investments, absolutely.
I guess I would jump into it, and that is just to capitalize or try to really emphasize what Guillermo was noting there. There's certain things that we're going to do, because we do know it helps, but we want to focus more and more as we can on things that are more innovative or would be more what you see trying to be a leader in certain areas, because that's the thing with this as well, and that's also emphasized throughout the CBA, is that we have a mandate to work with organizations to try to find solutions to things that different community groups are struggling with, and we're struggling with as well. And that was something too we even touched on. I was with a session earlier this morning with Nicole Bascom Green and then Jerry Kelman with NCRC, and we were talking about special purpose credit programs, and that's something that we're also exploring, and that's also named in this community benefits agreement. But that's right there. If you weren't at that session, just real quickly, special purpose credit programs, what you have there is this is a part of a regulation also that came from the 1970s, similar to the Community Reinvestment Act. But you had this regulation called the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, ECOA, and a part of it allows for banks to actually have certain racial characteristics be considered in their credit decision, which is normally you can't do that. But if it's going to be to benefit those individuals or that underserved group, then, and if you're tailoring your underwriting so that the loan or the mortgage or the small business loan is more approachable, or it's better priced, or it's more sensible, you can do those things. And so that's part of the neat thing about this is, again, we have a mandate to look into more of these kinds of innovative solutions.
I see you have a question.
Well, yeah, this maybe isn't innovative, but thinking about the Inflation Reduction Act and the tax credit side of that, would there be space here, maybe with the CDFI and this community development investments?
Yes. So the question is on the Inflation Reduction Act and tax benefits there. I'm not as familiar with the act as far as how it would tie to the CBA, but just know that when there's an opportunity for the bank to participate in a tax credit, we definitely do look at that. So we will look at state tax credits. Anything that's federal that still meets the goals of providing, whether it's housing or services or small business support, we would definitely look at that as a potential investment vehicle. There's also other types of credits out there, like new markets tax credits that can be used to support facilities and those sort of things. So we would definitely look at that. There could even be energy tax credits. If it's providing solar panels for low-income projects or something like that. There's other credits that can come into play. Those are considered investments under CRA and the CBA. So we would definitely look at things like that would fit this category. And those are more creative, and we like those kind of investments because they're meeting a definite need. They're a lot more creative and innovative. So we definitely would be looking at that. Yes.
No, actually, I meant to note that before, like, please jump in with questions. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could do a special purpose credit program for ITIN borrowers, or if like an affordable mortgage for ITIN borrowers is part of the mortgage lending package that you described earlier.
So the question is, can we do a special purpose credit program that's focused on ITIN borrowers? That is definitely something I think we've already been talking about, and so yes, those are exactly the kinds of things that we want to consider, and I believe are actually actively considering.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. You know, we signed this agreement. It's dated like May 2022, and it became effective April of this year, right? It's like a whole year later. But what the point I want to make is that we didn't wait a whole year to be like, okay, now we have this agreement. Now we got to go do something. It's not that. Nicole's team that Adam referenced was created as part of this. You know, we started a year ago. We've been staffing up. As far as the special purpose credit program, we already have an internal working group, and we've been kind of going through different ideas. I think it's the mortgage side that we're leaning towards, but we haven't decided if that's where it's going to end up. But we are looking at what we have to take some steps, and Adam did a great job earlier in his presentation. Is we have to assess need, right? What product is needed, and then we got to do some research, and then we got to build a program around it, and then we got to run it through compliance and legal and think about all those things, right? Because we are working with a specific population, and we want to make sure we're careful that we're not putting them in a position that makes them worse off than they were before, right? So there's all these implications that go into that, and he's our expert, so you can jump in there, Adam.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like we've positioned some things well because I'm in compliance, and so, yeah, sometimes I feel like people, when they think of compliance, they think of the Department of No. I try to be more, let's see how we get to that solution. I find that being in compliance, it helps to even, I feel like that's used a lot of times, unfortunately, to say why we can't do things, like why banks can't do things. And I want our bank to be a bank that's not being hampered by compliance. So,
I think I saw a question over here first, and then we'll catch her next.
Thanks. So, how do you envision kind of the rollout of these funds to groups like ours? So, if we were interested in, we have CDFI and we wanted to approach you, would it feel like a grant, or would it start with a conversation with somebody at a spot?
Yes. So the question is how groups can really engage with us from a grant, charitable giving approach, and how you would start those discussions. So definitely on our website, as I mentioned, umpquabank.com/community. That's going to be revamped. That's our site. You can go at any time. What I would recommend is that, and hopefully my contact info is out there as part of this conference. If not, you can reach out to me. Maybe Adam was already.
well, I don't have I should have included.
We should have put our info
later on, but why is this not advancing? There we go. We'll have our contact info, but then also there's things like community at umpquabank.com. That's another way to contact us or follow up.
Thank you for that. So you can definitely reach out that way, and then that will initiate the discussion internally. So depending on where you're located, obviously we're in Oregon today, but let's say you're an entity in California, you would reach out, and then we would try to connect you with, we have a team of impact officers. I have one in California. He's based out, his name is Petter. He's based in Sacramento. And then Brendan is who's sitting in the back. If you want to talk to Brendan, he in the back with the good-looking guy with a beard in the back. That's Brendan. So he can definitely connect you with our current programs. So I would suggest we start a conversation, get to know us. We actually have a community, we call it a community services menu, where we have a talk with you and we say like, hey, we offer all kinds of things, and I'm going to talk about some of that in a minute. That goes beyond charitable contributions, but that's definitely an important part. And we are looking for partners. We are looking to make new partnerships that helps us advance a lot of these commitments in the CBA. So we feel that we want to give to the community, and hopefully the community can give back to us, because really do want to be successful in meeting our goals. And another note on that is that this is a 5-year agreement. It doesn't mean that at 5 years we go, we did it, guys, hey, let's go, and we can go back to doing the old stuff we were doing before. This is, I think this gives us direction, but it's not our plan, right? This is just a portion of our overall strategy that the bank is developing from its, social impact and CRA strategy. This is just a subset of that. This is not the plan for us, right? So it's an important piece, and we definitely want to perform well to this, but this is something that will eventually end, but our work, will continue on, and we'll call it something else. We'll come up with our own name.
Well, and likely, we'd refresh it, either in this style or something similar, Yeah,
I agree. Question?
Another question, thank you.
Sure.
So I saw pre-development loans flat 5, and I wonder if you have any more details on what that might look like.
Sure. Not a lot of detail yet. So what we're working through internally, and Grace can talk to you, could let you know a little bit more about this, because she's out in the field. And when you're talking about building multifamily affordable housing, before you can even submit an application, you have to have a site control. You have to have control of the site, and you have plans, and you have budgets, and all those things put together. And a lot of times you don't even get funding till like the second round when you apply, right? So it takes forever. So from the time you're trying to conceptualize a project to the time it actually gets funding, it takes it could be 2-3 years, maybe longer than that. So pre-development, as you're talking about, is early money that allows you to acquire a site. It's early money that allows you to pay for an architect to come up with some plans for your development. It could be single family, it could be multifamily housing. So we haven't developed the programs. However, what we're focusing on with the foundation is to start supporting those entities, either through grants, primarily to start off with, is to start giving some grant money to organizations that are doing pre-development work, so they can start covering some of those expenses. I think there's going to be opportunity for loans where it could be maybe a little bit more patient capital, as they call it out in the industry. Hopefully we can start working on a program that does that. So we haven't set those up yet, but we're having discussions internally, because that's, if you've read this agreement, it's in here mentioned in different categories. On the lending piece, it's on the philanthropy piece. So we need to attack it from both directions, and we understand the need, because pre-development is so huge, and there's only you can only get a loan. I don't know if there's any banks doing pre-development. You might know better that than me if you're in that industry, but I don't know too many banks that do pre-dev. It's mostly coming from CDFI partners, primarily, from what I've seen.
But with that too, both organizations had a history of doing equity equivalent investments as well, EQ2s, and so that's something also we'll be looking to definitely continue on going forward as well, especially to help our CDFI partners.
Yes. Are you all familiar with EQ2 investments? Equity equivalent investments? No? Okay, so just very briefly, so for community development financial institutions, they can access investments from banks. They're called equity equivalent investments, and we shorten it to EQ2s. But basically, and banks can structure them differently, but basically they're 10-year loans. They're unsecured and typically carry a low interest rate. Rates have gone up considerably, so I don't know what rates would look like on something like that today, but they're lower than market typically. And it's very patient capital. They make quarterly interest payments to the bank, and depending on what the CDFI, they have to tell us the intent of how the funds are going to use. But as long as they're meeting those objectives, that money can just kind of sit out there for forever, theoretically, right? Because we just keep extending the credit, because we feel that that money can be used by the CDFI. They can deploy it, get the money back, deploy it, so it gives them like a 10-year window where they can be a little bit flexible, so they can acquire land. Maybe they helps them acquire a property that's approaching the end of its tax credit life, and they want to maybe acquire a site, or it could be all kinds of different things, but that's kind of the idea for CDFI investments.
I think we had a question.
Oh, yes, here.
Yes.
Yes, we have a few questions in chat from Bailey.
Okay.
What are realistic ways as housing providers we can actually use the new CBA in Oregon? How do we interact with and use this new 5-year plan? How do we hold the bank accountable?
Ooh, we are definitely getting to some of those things, but even on the next slide, wonderful questions. Yes, just to answer those quickly, as far as how to engage, as Guillermo was noting, and then we'll have this on some later slides, but it's starting conversations with either Guillermo's team or people like me or our community lending team, so different representatives who are either already here at the conference or the information is available either on our website or just even on things like LinkedIn. So there's that. There's also a community at umpquabank.com email where you can send in especially different things like donation requests or going through the website as well. Right? What was it exactly?
Yeah, umpquabank.com/community.
So that's so another way. And then we also have a community advisory panel, which we'll get to that a little bit more, but and that's something Guillermo manages, but that's there's 16 members that were chosen to be part of this panel, and it's from organizations throughout our entire footprint, and it's community organizations like all of yours, and these folks will also help us to deploy this and follow through on this plan. That's part of our one of our components is governance and report outs, and so that's something that we committed to giving them regular updates at least once a year on our progress. So that is definitely something that is also part of the plan.
And then one other question. Are there upcoming funding, pre-development sources, or products for infrastructure related to affordable housing projects in Oregon?
Nothing yet as far as any programs. They're under development, really, is what I want to say there. Is we're trying to figure out how do we approach those needs, and how do we do it internally in a way that makes sense for us. So we're just in the early research phase of that. So there's more to come for sure. We're only 5 months into our agreement or something like that. So we have a ways to go, but we're definitely moving towards that. So on the accountability piece, I'll definitely talk about it as we move through the presentation.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, great questions though. Keep them coming. Feel free to jump in at any time.
Well, if I may, just very excited to see capacity building support for CDFIs and affordable housing nonprofit developers. Does that work for Habitat for Humanity?
Oh.
Affordable home ownership developers?
Absolutely. We love Habitat.
Yeah,
From Colombia to Umpqua, they've been a great partner of ours.
Yeah, and earlier this year, I know the Umpqua did a significant support for the Habitat conference, and that's something that I know, just talking to our community lending team, that is very much on their radar and something that they're going to look to continue to do.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like that capacity building is going to be definitely something that we want to continue to support throughout our entire footprint. So that's, those are the kinds of things, like, in some ways you might say it's like we're giving people more kind of hooks on what to highlight that your organization is doing, and that's going to be the kind of things to highlight that you're working on, that we'll look to support those activities.
Mm-hmm. No, great point, Adam. And if you, as you have reached out to funders and you ask for capacity building support, a lot of times you get a no. They're like, no, we want programs, right? And they don't want to pay for staffing. You know, they for somehow people think that nonprofits run on like zero money, and all the 100% of the money needs to go to programs. It doesn't work like that. You know, you got to pay for staff. You got to pay for the light bill, right? You have an office, you have staff. So it's unrealistic to think that all the money can go to programs. So I believe this shift in our strategy really highlights that fact that we need to support the infrastructure so all these other things can get done. Capacity building is one of those. Prior to this, through our foundation, capacity building wasn't on the list. Like if you didn't check the box, you wouldn't get funded. So this really opens up those categories to support capacity building. So great eye on that. Good catch.
All right, should we flip to our next
Yeah,
slide?
let me just talk about small business. I think I skipped it earlier, so sorry about that. So yeah, small business lending, as you can see, it's a 1.6 billion. Again, we're focusing on minority-owned businesses, businesses located in low and moderate income tracts, majority minority tracts, those with revenues under $1 million. So we're going to employ the current programs that we have, and then we'll look to maybe even develop other programs to help meet our goal. Colombia has a really rich history of SBA lending. They were always like a top lender in the Northwest and always received awards. Umpqua, we weren't as good as Colombia, so it was great that when we merged, that tradition is carrying over to a much larger institution now as we're combined. So we're hoping we can expand our existing portfolio products through the SBA, in particular the SBA Express, which are smaller SBA loans that don't require like this huge application process to get.
Yeah, and it's like just a scored product, so up to $50,000, and we've ratcheted down so that it's a lot more available to businesses, and so it's a lot more quicker to get the loan. We're looking to make it so that it's the underwriting, well, it's scored. So like when I say scored, that means that they're really like all they're looking at is like the business's credit score and a couple other factors, and that's it. And they're not doing an extended underwriting process, and they're looking to get these out quickly, and also to have it where it's it's not as high of a threshold. And so that's another example of some of the things that we looked at critically, and we wanted to adopt the best practices from both organizations for the go forward.
Yeah, we're trying to make it as easy as possible. If you guys have been through an SBA loan, you know that you have to like go through an extensive application process, and you have to pledge your firstborn as collateral, right, for payback of the loan. So all of that. So this SBA Express are like, and there's a need for that, right? And there's a place for SBA. We need those types of loans for those bigger businesses that need that capital, but the smaller businesses need that quick access to capital without having to jump a whole bunch of hoops. So that's what the SBA Express does.
Yeah, I really wish we could incorporate more Rumpelstiltskin references into presentations, because that one always terrified and was interesting to me growing up. But
yeah, for sure. All right. So yeah, let's jump to the. This is you.
Yep.
There you go. Hand it back to you.
So we wanted to get a little bit more, just highlight some of more of the nitty gritty commitments and components. We already started to get to some of them. We definitely talked about mortgage lending and a lot of like just the outright commitment that we have dollars wise. But yeah, again, want to emphasize that we're critically looking at things like underwriting. We're also looking into more robust down payment assistance programs. We want to also make sure that we have products that are more sensible for rural areas, along with helping also support Native American communities throughout the Pacific Northwest, because we know there's lots of tribes that are in the communities that Umpqua is part of. Guillermo also talked about the small business lending. The other thing I would highlight here is that we're also working on a referral program. So this is, again, both banks had informal referral programs, but we really want to have something that's formalized. And so where our bankers know exactly who to go to, as far as like, if we do have a decline, a small business decline, we know which CDFI partners to go to in those communities to then bring that application or that business so that it doesn't just end in a decline, that we get them the technical assistance they need to then hopefully get credit or something that will make sense for them. We talked about community development loans and investments. I don't think I have much to add there, nor really on the philanthropy. But then, strategic planning and implementation. This is also something where, in talking to the NCRC, we want to make sure that we're at the table when it comes to different things, even things like this, like where we have a forum where we're talking about ways to make sure that all Oregonians are housed, and we want to make sure that we're present and that we're showing up and that we're part of these discussions. And then that also is something that we take internally for and include in our strategic planning, and then for implementation down the line. I think Guillermo talked a little bit about this, but or maybe not. But branches and staffing, where we've made a commitment to open at least 4 branches in either low or moderate income areas or majority minority areas as well. And so this is something that we believe too that with these communities that we're part of, we need to have a presence in not just definitely not just wealthier areas, but then also in areas where we're reaching customers of all diverse income backgrounds and racial backgrounds. Oh, and that's and also we have that we had a bank on commitment to basically to take Columbia's foundation account and make sure that that was part of the Go Forward organization. And so there we have an account that, again, if you are familiar with Bank On, you'll know that these are accounts that are they're geared for folks who are either just they're new to getting a bank account, or maybe they've had some trouble or challenges in the past, and it's a sensible account where there's no overdraft fees or other certain other fees as well. All you have is a modest monthly service charge, and then it's primarily a debit card that that allows people to then have access to all the banking services. We also want to make sure that we're more reflective of the communities that we're part of. So we also are looking to make sure that we hire staff that, again, are coming from the different communities, the diverse communities that we're part of. So that's another commitment we have. And then a couple last things, supplier diversity. We want to make sure that on that side that we're putting in a program that really does a better job at making sure that we engage with different suppliers that are either minority owned or have just a bit more just a bit more intention on who we're working with. And so that's also a commitment that we have to at least have a program there that over the next 5 years that will ensure that we're having a lens in that area too, a much better lens. And then finally, we talked about this a little bit, but I think I'll turn this back to you, Guillermo, just because you're responsible for this. But then, when it comes to the agreement, governance, and report outs, like I said, we have this community advisory panel, which will be reporting to them on our progress with the CBA at least once a year, if not probably more often. But this is going to be the part where we're noting our progress, where we're doing well. Hopefully we won't have too many areas where we're not doing well, but if we do, then we'll talk with them around solutions or things to turn things around.
So earlier there was a question in the chat about how do we hold you accountable to this agreement? So if you look at this agreement on the very final page, there's not a signature page in here. this agreement doesn't say, this agreement is between Umpqua and X party. There's none of that there, right? So this is almost like this quote-unquote gentleman's agreement, right, where you say you're going to do something and take our word for it. So as it relates to accountability, so Adam and his team have set up a tracking system for metrics within our risk and compliance group. They're tracking this from a risk perspective, because if we don't deliver, this can look bad, right? This could be a bad PR for us. So there's a risk to that, right? There's a reputation risk associated with this, and this could impact all kinds of other things down the road for us. So it's important. So not only do we are holding ourselves accountable internally with our executive team, our CEO, and our board, it's at that level that reporting is going to go to our board of directors. So it's very, very important. From the external piece that Adam just mentioned, we have an advisory panel, 16 members. These are members that are not just going to sit there and let us get away with this if we're not delivering. They're very important organizations in the community. They have great leadership, and they were chosen for that. And we chose them because we want to be held accountable. We want to get their feedback. So as Adam mentioned, we'll be reporting to them. And we also have an agreement to report with the NCRC, who helped us put this agreement together, right? So the National Community Reinvestment Coalition. So we're going to be reporting to them. I believe it's annual. I think that's what we agreed to do. But they have a reporting structure on how they want the data presented, and we're going to work with those templates so we can report out to them. So not only is our own panel going to hold us accountable, NCRC will do the same, and then internally we're going to hold us accountable. So there's different levels of accountability throughout this process.
Yeah. And this brings us to our last slide, and realizing we're actually also almost to the end of this. Already got some great questions, but want to make sure that if there's other questions, we leave time for that. So this last slide, we've already touched on it a number of times, but it gets a little bit more into how to connect with us and how to work with folks throughout our organization. Guillermo, I thought I'd turn this back over to you and see if
Yeah, sure. And I won't go over line by line. I mean, you can see it there. And we've talked about some of these already on how we can partner. I think it's important for you all to know that we have Umpqua Bank had a 40 hours of volunteer paid time off that the bank provides to our associates. After the merger, that was retained, so we were pretty happy about that. So that's one resource that you can tap into, is that because we have, and I don't know the number of associates, I know it's a lot, I don't know, like 6,000 or maybe even more than that, and we're spread out. So if you're a nonprofit that's looking for volunteers, you can definitely reach out to us. It could be a one-off where you just have an event and you need some help, or it could also be at that board level where you're looking for somebody that has like some certain skills. Maybe you're looking for an accountant, and we have internal accountants that could potentially serve. Maybe you're looking for a board member that has IT experience. We have people at our bank that are IT professionals. So we can provide that human capital that is just as important as receiving a grant, right? Because you're receiving expertise that at times could be invaluable, if it's helping your organization grow and be set for success. So definitely take advantage of the volunteer opportunities available. Let's see what else we're talking about here.
Just give some information around like ESG, so right, environment, social, and governance. So we definitely, Umpqua has a history of reporting on our performance in that area, and so you can go to our website for additional information or reports on that, and then seeing what we're up to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and good point on the ESG, Adam. In the agreement, there's some. When you read it, there's some that are very like hard numbers, right? Like this many loans in this area, and this total number of dollars in lending. But then within the agreement, you're going to see other things that will say we'll pursue supporting organizations that are involved in like mitigating the impact of climate change, for example. Some of those are in here. There's no hard numbers associated with those, but we're going to look beyond just what CRA says, would qualify. We're going to look at climate is a big one that is going to come up. There's some things that are just not, maybe can't be measured in this agreement, but they're more qualitative, I guess that's the word. So as we're going through this agreement, supplier diversity programs and other things that are not CRA, that has nothing to do with CRA, but increasing the diversity of our associates, of our company. There's no metrics measured around that, but they're definitely more of the qualitative aspects of the agreement as well.
Yeah, and that's, Guillermo had mentioned that the team that I work with, we're tracking all kinds of things when it comes to the CBA. I think at the end of the day, I think we have almost 100 different commitments or components, and many of them are qualitative. And so that's, again, that's something that we're going to look to hold ourselves accountable to and make sure that we deliver.
And I guess you could always send an email there too. If you say, Umpqua Bank, you're not delivering on your promise, you can certainly send an email there too. But don't call me. Just send an email, but don't call me. Yes.
So how are we going to capture success stories and share them? Do you have like a marketing?
Funny that you mentioned that. We're working through some of that, because we're a new company, basically. We took the best parts of 2 previous banks and put them into a new one. So we're developing our social impact strategy. And that's one thing our bank team do. We did a decent job of kind of showing some of our successes, but I think we can definitely improve in that. And we definitely want to highlight those in the community as we move along.
Yeah, I can definitely say that Umpqua did a much better job than Columbia did, and I came from Columbia, so I feel safe in saying that. Columbia, we struggled in that area.
No, it is, and it's a balance, right? Because you don't want to be bragging like, oh, look, I did this. Look at the big check I just wrote. But I think we're looking more into the, yes, we did provide a program or a grant, but what did that do? What was the impact of that investment? That's really what we want to highlight. Are we creating jobs? Are we putting people into the workforce through workforce development funding, right? Or if we made a pre-development loan or investment, did that result in a project being built? I think that's where we want to get to, and we're definitely working towards that. Yeah, we're working on a marketing strategy too. Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah, great question.
Other questions?
Yes.
Does Umpqua are you a sponsor or concierge for conduit for Federal Home Loan Bank?
Great question. So the question was, are we a conduit for the Federal Home Loan Bank? And yes, we are members of the Des Moines FHLB, and we do things like AHP loans. We also, I'll have to get this confirmed, but I believe I know that both organizations were eligible for the Home Start down payment assistance, and I believe that still is the case. But definitely, we have a partnership with the FHLB.
Mm-hmm. And I think internally we used to work with Grace's team initially for the AHPs, but now that we're a unified entity, I think we'll have to figure out the logistics there on how we get a project through the AHP process. But this was our first round that we did earlier this year, was the first round as a unified company. So we made it, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we get an award. But yeah, we work closely with our internal partners to make that happen. Yeah.
Other questions? All right. Well, we might wrap a little bit early then, but definitely Guillermo and I will stick around here. If you have any other questions you'd like to bring up, just one-on-one, more than happy to talk. Mm-hmm. And like I said, this is something we're very much looking not only just to carry on this discussion. I know that for both Guillermo and I, this is again the things in this plan are just they're important. We know that they're important for our communities, and they're important for us. we know that this is the kind of work that both he and I, pretty much from college, I think, we're doing this kind of work in some shape or form. And it's just, this is the kind of thing that when you see the impact, you just know that you can't give up, and you got to make sure that you follow through and do what you can to do as much to advance these different initiatives so that you can be part of the solution.
For sure. You know, when the bank announced the merger and said, hey, we're going to work with the community groups, we were like, thank goodness, because that makes our job so much easier when we're approaching this from a can-do attitude. Otherwise, it just wouldn't have worked to go any other route, really. So I want to thank you folks for sticking with us. I know it's maybe not the most exciting topic. It's exciting for us, but we did this for over a year. And we were like, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be like thinking like, oh, did we fix that number on page 6? And I'd be like, oh my God, what's going on? Then I wake up in a sweat, But we got it done, and it's a good agreement and something we can be proud of. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.